It is exactly 2 a.m. local time. Deep inside the Belgorod region, just miles from the Ukrainian border, the night is perfectly still. Inside a mobile command post of the 565 Anti-Aircraft Missile Regiment, a Russian lieutenant stares at a radar screen, glowing a calm, hypnotic green. The heater hums softly against the winter cold. The coffee beside him is still warm. Nothing feels urgent. Nothing feels dangerous. Why would it? He is sitting beneath what the Kremlin calls the Iron Dome of the North. He is protected by the S-400 Triumph, a system advertised as the most advanced air defense shield ever built. A system designed to track targets 248 miles away. A system meant to make this place untouchable. To this lieutenant, the war is distant. Something happening somewhere else, to someone else. But 200 feet above him, invisible against the cloud deck, a plastic drone with a shaped charge has already begun its terminal dive. It will never appear on his radar. It is too small, too slow, made of the wrong material. And in a few seconds, that quiet green screen will go dark. Not because the system failed, but because the idea behind it did. To this lieutenant, the war is something that happens to other people. But 200 feet above him, invisible against the cloud deck, a plastic drone with a shaped charge is beginning its terminal dive. It doesn't appear on his $500 million radar because it is too small, too slow, and made of the wrong material. Impact. The explosion doesn't just kill the crew, it shatters a myth. The S-400s aren't intercepting the threat. They are becoming the fuel for the bonfire. As you watch the footage of the fireballs illuminating the Russian night, you are witnessing something historic. This isn't just an attack. It is the systematic dismantling of a superpower's air superiority. In a single 24-hour cycle, Ukraine didn't just scratch the paint. They destroyed 2 S-400 batteries in Belgorod and crippled the air defense network of Crimea. These systems are the crown jewels of the Russian military. They are the weapons that NATO pilots train to avoid. They are the reason Russia believed its borders were impenetrable. Yet tonight, they are burning on their own launch pads, destroyed by cheap drones they were designed to hunt. The hunter has become the prey, and the shield has become the target. But we need to pause, because if you focus only on the fire in Belgorod, you are falling for the same trap the Russian generals did. Belgorod wasn't the battle. It was the distraction. While the northern sky burned, forcing Russian commanders to look up and scramble their reserves, the real knife was already moving south. The Kremlin's attention was split, their resources stretched thin. And in that moment of confusion, Ukraine struck the heart of the Black Sea. Let's rewind to the night of December 18th. Belbek airbase is the heartbeat of Russian air power in the Black Sea. It is a fortress of concrete and steel. But the Ukrainian operation launched that night didn't aim for the runway. It aimed for the eyes. The primary targets were the Nebo SVU radars. To understand the gravity of this loss, you have to understand the machine. The Nebo SVU isn't just an ordinary radar. It is a massive phased array behemoth standing as tall as a 3-story building. Each one costs $100 million. Russia markets them as the ultimate stealth hunter, capable of detecting an F-35 or an F-22. But on this night, the technology failed. For a moment, the Russian operators might have seen a ghost, a flicker on the screen that looked like birds or static. They hesitated. That hesitation was fatal. The Ukrainian drones rode the radar waves down like a zip line. Boom! When the warheads detonated, they lobotomized the air defense of the entire peninsula. The screens in the command bunkers went black. The electronic brain of the Black Sea Fleet was dead. But this wasn't easy. According to leaked reports, during the approach to the second target, the Ukrainian feed went dark. For 3 agonizing seconds, the screens in Kyiv turned to static. The operators held their breath. Was it jamming? Had the Russians finally woken up? Then, The signal snapped back. The target was still there. The target was the 92N6 Gravestone Fire Control Radar. If the Nebo SVU tells you something is out there, the Gravestone tells the missile where to kill it. Without it, the S-400 is blind. A single drone slammed into the radar array. In a split second, $60 million of advanced electronics turned into a pile of smoking scrap. The export price tells you the financial loss, but the strategic loss is incalculable. You cannot buy a Gravestone radar at a supermarket. It takes months to manufacture and calibrate. For the foreseeable future, the sky over Crimea is open. But the destruction didn't stop at the radars. Parked on the tarmac was a MiG-31 Foxhound. This is not a normal jet. It is a strategic heavy interceptor, one of the few platforms modified to carry the Kinzhal hypersonic missile. It is a strategic asset worth over $50 million. Shrapnel from the drone strike tore through its delicate avionics and fuselage. A damaged MiG-31 cannot launch a hypersonic missile. Russia's ability to retaliate has been grounded. In one night, the SBU inflicted over $200 million in damage, but the psychological wound is far deeper. This disaster exposes a rot at the core of Russian military doctrine. The Russian theory of air defense is built on layers. The massive S-400 is the king, but it is supposed to be protected by a bodyguard, the Pantsir S-2. The Pantsir is a short-range system designed specifically to shoot down the cheap drones that threaten the expensive radars. So why did it fail at Belbek? It wasn't just bad luck, it was the ruthless math of saturation. A Pantsir vehicle typically carries 12 ready-to-fire missiles. It takes time to reload. It takes time for the radar to switch targets. Ukraine simply sent more threats than the system could process. If the battery has 12 missiles, you send 13 drones. For a moment, the Pantsir crew must have felt invincible as they swatted down the first wave. But then, the tubes ran dry, and the radar showed another wave coming. The bodyguard died because it was swarmed. If the shield cannot protect the sword, and the shield cannot even protect itself, the entire architecture of defense collapses. Let's look at the ripple effect. When the sky falls, the sea becomes a graveyard. On the same day Crimea burned, Ukrainian drones penetrated deep into the Russian rear to strike the Novoshakhtinsk oil products terminal. Simultaneously, in Rostov-on-Don, the Russian tanker Valery Gorchakov was hit. Photos from the next morning show the stern of the ship submerged, listing heavily in the freezing water. This ship wasn't just carrying crude oil for export, it was carrying fuel for the Russian transport network. It was a logistical node. Think about the implications. Rostov is supposed to be the deep rear. It is supposed to be safe. But if your tankers are sinking in your own harbors, and your best air defense systems are exploding in your own fields, where is safe? Nowhere. The most dangerous consequence of these attacks isn't the financial cost. It is the virus of distrust spreading through the ranks. Imagine you are a Russian pilot at Belbek. You walk out to your jet, and you see the charred skeleton of the radar that was supposed to watch your back. You realize the propaganda was a lie. The invincible S-400 is mortal. This realization breeds hesitation. It breeds insubordination. The Russian command now faces a fatal dilemma. Do they pull the S-400S back to protect Moscow and the strategic ports? If they do, the soldiers on the front lines in Ukraine are left naked against HIMARS and airstrikes. Or do they keep the systems at the front? If they do, the refineries, the airbases, and the capital remain wide-open targets. There is no third option. They simply do not have enough batteries to cover the largest country on Earth. In a desperate attempt to regain the narrative, Defense Minister Andrei Belousov announced the deployment of the S-500 Prometheus system. On paper, it is a sci-fi weapon, capable of hitting satellites in space, radar range of 1,200 miles. But we must look at this critically. The S-400 was also hyped as the ultimate weapon. Today, it is scrap metal in a field in Belgorod. If you like this even a little bit, please subscribe to Military Media YT to encourage us. The S-500 faces the exact same physics problem. It is designed to kill ballistic missiles moving at Mach 10. There is no battlefield proof that it can track a plastic drone hovering at 50 feet. Maybe it will work. Maybe it is the miracle weapon Putin needs. Or maybe it will become the most expensive lesson in the history of air defense. Deploying the S-500 now isn't a show of strength. It feels like bringing a prototype to a gunfight because the production models have failed. But what we are seeing today is just the preview. Ukraine is betting on brutal efficiency. They have acquired Ultra drones from the UK. These are not small quadcopters. They are massive cargo carriers capable of hauling 330 pounds of explosives over 600 miles. Imagine a drone that can take off from Kharkiv and strike a logistics hub near Moscow with the force of a cruise missile. These drones can bypass the front lines entirely. They are cheap, they are numerous, and they are coming. The picture is clear. The Russian war machine is bleeding out. It is running out of conventional cards to play. That is why the rhetoric is changing. That is why names like Oreshnik are being whispered. Not as strength, but as desperation. Because when your shields fail, you stop talking about defense, and you start talking about escalation. The so-called Iron Dome over Belgorod and Crimea hasn't just cracked, it has been vaporized. Somewhere on a Crimean airbase tonight, a Russian pilot walks past the twisted skeleton of a radar dish, metal warped by heat, cables hanging loose like severed nerves. He pauses. He looks up at the dark winter sky, the cold wind cutting through his flight suit, and in that moment, the propaganda finally dies. He understands a truth no briefing can undo. No one is watching the sky for him anymore, and once the sky belongs to no one, it belongs to whoever is bold enough to take it. So here's the real question. Is this the beginning of the end of Russian air superiority? Or will systems like the S-500 actually change the game? Can a superpower survive when its shield is broken? When every radar becomes a target and every night brings uncertainty? Let me know what you think in the comments. Because this war is no longer about territory alone. It's about who controls the sky and who is left exposed beneath it. Thanks for watching.